So much like I just did here, I didn't really think much before I jumped on here because we got to do this thing. Like it's important to share our thoughts, and there's a story that's connected to that. Actually, yesterday, reaching out to people in the automotive world because I've now partnered up and started this dealership. Reaching out to contacts that I know in the industry. Again, I spent 12 years in automotive, 8 of those, in leadership and management roles, and for, 6 of those running dealerships. And so I had a friend and a mentor of mine that was my senior at a dealership that I ended up becoming the GSM of. And anyway, he had went to another dealership, and then over the years we've just continued to talk. And then I left the dealer group back in 2023, actually 2022, but started revisited Livish and reinvigorated that in 2023 in January. It had been going since 2016, but I went more into a consulting role. And so he had been talking to me for a while and was having a hard time gaining traction on his consulting or his partnerships that he was endeavoring in. And so the last time I talked to him, he was just very disappointed in himself and with the outcomes of the efforts that he's made, and wasn't very clear on what to do. And, as someone who's out there wanting to give their value out, I can say that the most stressful thing about jumping into a vertical that's different than the one you've been in. So, for example, going from automotive to consulting, I didn't know what niche I wanted to be in. I knew I didn't really want to be in automotive because I had talked to some of those folks, and many people in automotive are very closed-minded. They're not about growth. They just want more, and that's not growth-oriented. They just want to make more money, but they don't understand processes and SOPs and clear communication and setting standards and expectations with your people. And so I wanted to get out of automotive altogether, which is one main reason why I left the industry in the beginning, because things have changed so much. It wasn't about the staff and taking care of the staff and the customers. It was just about making money. And that just means you've forgotten what business is all about. You're serving people. And so anyway, when I went into the consulting industry, I just had to throw myself out there, and people would ask me questions that I could not clearly answer because I was not certain of them. I was not sure of them. I was not practiced on them. And so I had to learn, through those conversations how to narrow down my presentation of what I was doing and how I could add value to their companies. And, through that experience, I got some really great opportunities and had some really great results. And then unfortunately, I wasn't paid on several contracts to the tune of $1.5 million. And so anyway, back to Joe's situation is people ask him to come in and help. A lot of times owners ask for help, but what they really want is an employee to do what they say. The reason most people don't scale or they don't get to the objectives that they want is because they continue to do the same things over and over. And a lot of employers look at everyone that can help them as an employee and not a consultant or somebody who is outside the group to give them perspective that they didn't otherwise have. And the tough part about that is that owners take very much pride in their companies and the way in which they do things, and that becomes very stubborn, very egocentric, and it limits your mind to receiving things that would actually allow you to do what you want to achieve and that you haven't been able to. And so when a consultant comes in, it can kind of be somewhat combative, especially if there's multiple partners or managers involved in running that organization, because maybe one person sees it and brings you in and says, yeah, go full bore, but then there's 5 other people that think that you're stepping on their toes. This is a very limited mentality in an organization, but it's also very common. And so he was struggling with that, and he was in automotive for a very long time, like 25, 30 years, but also had construction background. And so he wanted to consult his cousin on how to grow their business strategically by aligning business to partners and things of that nature, which we do in automotive very frequently. And so he tried to do that, and then basically it became, his cousin telling him, well, we don't need to do that. I just want to do this. And so not talking to him like as if he was a consultant, giving good advice, talking to him as an employee, just do what I say, and that's what I want. So again, that is, without him saying it, that just means he's not open to change. He just wants to keep doing the same things he's got and somehow achieve different results, right? And that's the definition of insanity. And so that's typical in those arenas. So long story short, in full circle, a lot of that, when you get into consulting, you forget that you're there to help the customer, and to be a professional, you're going to have to tell the customer or the client things that they are going to get frustrated about, or things that they are going to disagree with. Well, of course they're going to disagree with it, because you have an idea that is different than what has got them to where they're at. But if they're not open to new ideas and new plans and new executions, then they will always stay where they're at or digress. And so that is the truth. That's one thing that I've learned that is very true and consistent, is if you aren't open to change, you cannot change the current status of where you are. And if you want to grow, you have to be open to change. You have to be open to getting feedback from outside sources, and then implementing things, and then just trusting that different thing will be something that potentially will get you to the results that you want. And so with that said, Joe has now found himself in a consulting position. They wanted to hire him as a sales manager at an automotive dealership. And the more he talked to the owner was like, wow, I have 4 dealerships. I would love for you to come in and grow them. We've had a hard time becoming profitable. And I think that's awesome, right? Like, that's how those opportunities happen. It's not by marketing yourself and putting ads out and things like that. I learned that the hard way. Spent a lot of money on marketing and websites. And I told Joe, I said, Joe, keep it simple. Ask the customer that you're currently working with if he's satisfied with the work that you're doing. And then if he says yes, ask him if he knows business owners that could benefit from your knowledge and your expertise and the things that you are implementing in his business. Ask him if he can refer you to another person. This is fundamentally and will always be the best way to expand your business. It is not through paying people a whole bunch of money for fucking ads. The market is so saturated that if you're not playing with 10 to 15 grand in this market, it's going to be very hard for you to get any kind of traction. And also on top of that, a lot of people spend money on leads, but they don't have an intake process. So you don't have somebody who specifically answers leads. You don't have somebody who specifically cultivates, follows up with those people, reaches out to them consistently to cultivate those leads into conversion. And so you're just wasting money. It's delusionary. And it is an illusion that you're just going to spend money on leads and get money. That's not how that works. There is a process that needs to be followed. There are systems that need to be in place, and there is action that needs to be taken to make sure that that investment does translate into a return on investment, or ROI. And so with Joe, he was going down that road. He's like, I'm getting into this consulting. I'm finding myself. I'm learning how to, put training scripts together and processes together and put them on paper and communicate them to the people. I said, that's great. He said, but I find myself spending a lot of time in different areas on AI and websites and leads and trying to figure out all these ways to expand my consulting business. And I said, well, Joe, you don't even have a second contract yet, and you're only one person. Do you think you can handle 10 more clients? He said, well, probably not. I'd have to train somebody. I said, okay, well, are you getting paid enough now, and is your process solid enough to be able to train somebody on what you do? And he said, well, no, I'm working on that. I said, okay, well, then work on that. Don't distract yourself from what is getting you the money that you're getting and getting you the experience and the results that you need to be able to build a solid and clear foundation within your company. And once you do that, then maybe take on a second client for yourself. And at that point, master those 2 clients really well, make good money from those 2 clients, and then bring on somebody to help you within those 2 clients. And once you've done that, then you can focus on, okay, maybe I want another client. But I would still, at that point, focus on using the people you are working with to give you referrals rather than spending a bunch of money on marketing. And then you duplicate that process. And by duplicating that process, now you are perfecting and streamlining a process that is duplicatable, which means then you can handle more leads. It means that you already have a training process for the people that you're training to emulate you and coach your process and train your process and implement your process. And once you have that mapped out, that's when you can start taking on more customers, because now you've designed out a platform of coaching and training and consulting in automotive or whatever space you're in. And you've also, within that, you've learned how to manage staff and train them so you can duplicate yourself. And once you've done that, then you can bring on more opportunities through social media because you can handle the intake. You can add more employees because you already have an internal process within that allows you to scale. So again, before you decide, I need to scale, I need more money, make sure you've mastered the opportunity that you have now, and you have mastered the ability in your own process as well as the ability to train your process so you can duplicate yourself, and that's when you should go spend money on ads. All right, so hopefully I've added some value here today. Again, keep it simple. Don't overthink it. Stop looking on social media. Just be really, really good at the service that you provide and perfect that process, and then get so good at it that you can train it. And then once you can do that, now you have a scalable company. Go do that. Add some ads, etc. If you guys have any questions, reach out to me. I love to talk to people about this stuff. I've been through it all, and I'm still going through even more. But I've been through so much and spent so much money and failed so many times that I know more how to win. All right, guys, stay